Welcome again to It Doesn't Take a Genius, conversation with introspective perspectives and pithy points of view. Here are your hosts, my friends, Max and Marty.
I think that's Mark and Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Ramsey!
Marshall, you just happen to have my very favorite Pixar movie in your screen behind you. God bless you.
Yes, Syndrome. Yeah, one of my favorite villains from The Incredibles.
Yes.
Right, with the Underminer.
It is a
and
perfect
Bomb Voyage.
right.
Who can forget that classic? Nothing's worse than an evil mime.
It is a perfect movie. It is truly a perfect movie. You monologuing.
yeah. And he just kept monologuing. I'm more powerful than you, I'm going to take over the world. And yeah. And I noticed behind you, you got a classic villain. You got Mr. Boris Karloff.
Boris Karloff, and I'm not sure if my chair is in the way, but that's Boris Karloff as Captain Hook, who, in the book is just, frankly, he just wants to have a good form. And he had this great education, and he knows he's smarter than Peter, and he has all these things to justify himself. And at the very end, that's like his one thing that he gets on Peter is he gets a chance in the fight right before he cascades over the side to his death to say bad form, because Peter did something slightly off in the battle. So he's just obsessed with I've got good form. In a way I'm a good guy if you think about it.
Oh yeah. Well, no, and Syndrome the same way. He was mistreated by Mr. Incredible in his youth. He was,
right.
Publicly ridiculed.
Right.
And in turn, it sent him down a bad path.
Yep.
And so, yeah, is he really to blame? Is Mr. Incredible the bad guy at this point?
I sense where this episode's going. So what are we talking about today?
All right. So one of my favorite quotes, and I thought it was mine until I researched it for this episode, which now I'm terribly depressed,
right.
Is no one is the bad guy in their own movie.
I love it.
So yeah, no one is the bad guy in their own movie. And this comes up in almost every aspect of my life where when you're dealing with other carbon-based life forms.
Yeah.
And they come to find out, right, as I started Googling it, thinking about this episode, I come across George R.R. Martin, who wrote, "Nobody is a villain in their own story." And so that was a quote that he had. So once again, I'm a person late with my brilliance. So thought I had something here. Apparently, late to the party. So yeah, when I pitched this to you, right, what was your thoughts?
Well, I really think that's true. I mean, I often have said this, but we judge ourselves by our intentions, and we judge other people by their actions and their outcomes. So something negative happens to me because of something you did, quote unquote, and you're the bad guy. I could never be the bad guy. I mean, I obviously the reason I cut you off in traffic is because you wouldn't let me over. The reason I yelled at you today was because you made me so mad. It's never my fault. It's got to be your fault. You're the antagonist. I'm the protagonist. I'm the good guy here. Oh, yeah. And so, yeah, I totally buy this idea, and I can see how just the subtle mindset shift of thinking, I wonder, maybe I am the bad guy in this situation could be a real game changer for people.
Well, yeah, as I started thinking about this, right, that was my final thought as I thought about it, and we'll probably even use this as a recap. But yeah, you sit there and think, okay, was I ever the bad guy in someone else's movie?
Right.
Oh, that hurts. That's yeah.
Oh no.
Oh man, I was that guy.
Right.
So yeah, I'm sure in somebody else's movie, I was this horrible human being. But I didn't see it. And I'm not narcissist enough to think that it's never happened. Right. I'm sure it's happened, and I got a couple examples as I look back at my life. I go, yeah, I was probably that guy. And so but to have that thought, right, to have that realization that, yeah, sometimes it's me, and it's depressing and scary, but also enlightening, I think.
Yeah, and the blinders being on is, I think, the big part of this that makes this so scary, because I, you and I both work with car dealerships, and there have been in past years programs that the factory has had that dealers had to sign up for, perhaps, or felt like they had to sign up for. And so I've worked with some stores that didn't really want me there. They weren't really truly interested in improvement. And one story that was just one of the slimiest I've ever gone into. I remember, having a sort of a meeting about their customer surveys, and, how you make sure you do a good job for the customer so that you can honestly ask for the survey, and so on and so forth. And but the dealer interrupted me at one point to sort of chime in his 2 cents. And I mean, this is like one of the slimiest stores I've ever been to. And he completely sincerely, I believe he meant every word he said. He said, "Yeah, that's right, guys. We don't lie here. That's just not a good way to live your life. We're never going to lie." And like I just had to keep my straight face on and go, "Oh, he thinks they don't lie here. He really thinks they don't lie." And then you and I were talking about it earlier, and you pointed out, well, maybe he lies for good reasons.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, I'm a good businessman, and that's why I lie. You lying would be bad, but I mean, it's okay if I do it because I have to.
Yeah. You lie because you're a liar. I lie because it's good business.
Right.
I'm a good businessman.
Right.
But when you think about it, I mean, the list from history is endless. And some bigger examples. You think back to the all-time greatest villain, Hitler.
Yeah.
A lot of people see him as a bad guy now. In his mind, he was saving his people.
Yeah.
He was ridding Europe of a problem, and he was truly, at some point, even the second coming. He was going to be that well thought of, and he was truly the hero in his movie. And from our perspective, not so much.
Have you ever seen that Mitchell and Webb look, the British sketch comedy show? It's like the first, I think it's the first episode. It has these two Nazi officers, on the battlefront, and they're at camp, and they start looking around, and one of them says, "We have a lot of skull motifs in our decorations." And they start looking around, and it's on hats, and it's on crests, and it's on flags, and one of them leans over to the other and he says, "Are we the baddies?" Like it had just hit him.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah. Our uniforms are black.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Wait, you look at Pablo Escobar, world famous Colombian drug czar. He built
drug czar. You mean folk hero?
Oh, sorry, folk hero. My bad. Yeah, because he built hospitals, he built schools.
Right.
He lifted entire towns out of poverty. The guy was amazing. At the same time, he flooded other countries with drugs and is responsible for 4,000 deaths. Folk hero?
Right.
Maybe, And then probably the one that really cemented it for me was his name was Ariel Castro, and you may recall he was the guy in Cleveland who kidnapped 3 women and held them in his house for 10 years.
Oh yeah, just
held
awful.
them captive for 10 years. He beat them. He just unspeakable horrors.
Yeah.
And I remember it was at his sentencing. They let him speak. And the one thing he wanted to talk about, and you can Google it, it's on YouTube, right? The one thing he wanted to talk about and set the record straight was he was so upset because the media called him a monster.
Mm.
And he just was adamant, "I am not a monster." He says, "I'm sick, and I've got in a tough time handling my emotions, controlling my emotions, but I'm definitely not a monster."
Wow.
And it's like, wow, and you could tell by looking at it, he sincerely believed what he was saying. That I'm not the bad guy here. And so if you think if it can happen to that level,
Right.
What chance do mere mortals have?
Well, and you're going back to your very good question, because if he could just stop for a second and not make this about him and say, have I been the bad guy in somebody else's story? Perhaps 3 women who I've had in my house for a decade, might be an eye opener for him.
Yeah.
But refuse to see that.
Yeah, just couldn't see it or refuse not to see it.
Yeah.
And you see it to lesser extents. You run in, I hear about this all the time, given my age and the age of my friends' parents, where you have to make tough decisions about the parents, right? Are we going to try and take care of mom at home, or are we going to put her into assisted living or whatever? And you got one side of the family with, they're going to get great care and we'll find a great place for them, and then one of the siblings will stand up and go, we'll never put mom in the home, never, and in both cases they're both trying to do what's best by their mom. They just have different takes on it, and in turn each one is the villain, right? This is hard enough without you opposing us, right? And the other one's like, I'm saving mom from the tyranny of the other siblings, and it's like, they have no idea that there may be a pretty obvious choice here, but because I hold a different view, I'm now the savior, the hero, and everybody else is the bad guy.
And what's funny is both sides could be the villain if they never go visit mom or take care of mom. Like, we're not going to put her in a home. Sis, she ought to live with you. And never actually go help out. I do think that something about that, it really resonates with our previous episode, and we probably ought to link in the show notes, about choosing trust. That the idea here is, maybe instead of assuming that the other guy is the villain, say, he probably had good intentions. In other words, reverse what we said at the first, where I'm going to judge myself by my intentions and you by your actions and your outcomes. Well, maybe I need to start thinking, well, I wonder what his intentions were. I bet it wasn't to, rake me over the coals. I bet that wasn't what that person tried to do.
Oh, no, you raise a great point. Interesting example. So my wife and I adopted a little girl from China.
Yeah.
And so, we would take her around because, we were parents. And so people would come up to us many times. This happened. People would come up to us, they'd look at her, they'd look at us, kind of figure out that, okay, she's probably adopted. And then they would ask this question: how much did she cost? and my wife would come unglued, right? She'd like, flames would shoot out of her eyeballs, right? She's just going to go for their throat, pull their lungs out, wave it like a flag, do a little victory dance. However, what we quickly figured out was that's not what they were asking. What they're asking is, how much does adoption cost?
Yeah.
And if you stopped and talked to them, they had these wonderful intentions. So they were trying to figure out, because somebody in their family was trying to adopt, or somebody at work, they knew somebody at work that couldn't have kids, and they were thinking about adoption, but were worried about the financial part of it. And so they were trying to gather information to help somebody. Yeah. And as soon as you looked at it from that point of view, then you didn't have this instant urge to attack them.
Yeah. And isn't that, again, we just finished up a 3-part series on dignity, and, it's easy to see why your wife would assume that was a direct attack on the worth, the beyond the monetary, the worth of your lovely daughter. And actually it was honoring the dignity of somebody else who was trying to do this. And could you help us learn enough so that we can, help them go through it? I think that's a big part of this, is you can't take it personally. Right. Things that happen, you just cannot take them personally. There might be another reason.
And
then go look in the mirror.
and it became so fun, because it happened enough times I actually came up with a response. So, it had to be what I thought was funny. So they go, well, how much did she cost? And I go, well, it's hard to say because I had a coupon. And then we'd have a good chuckle, and I'd say, well, why do you ask?
Yeah.
And then they'd share this wonderful story of who they were trying to help. And we were actually able to help a few people.
Yeah.
Navigate the system and to make that happen. So it was truly a wonderful thing. It was just truly an approach that seemed villainous and shallow and mean and it wasn't any of those things.
Yeah.
We never experienced that.
I love that. Yeah, it's villainous. I mean,
yeah,
this is awful what this person has said and done. I think that's what we're talking about here.
The only way, sidebar, the only question we got asked that was worse, or maybe the question wasn't worse, my response was worse. So this older lady, it's just me and my daughter, we're in Walmart, and she's looking around the toy aisle, and this lady's watching us, right, almost to the point of uncomfortable. And then finally, she wheels her little cart over, and she goes, excuse me. She goes, is the mother Chinese? And I couldn't help myself. I said, I don't know, ma'am. It was really dark. She sucked all the air out of Walmart, just like, oh, like, oh, I'm kidding. And then once we got over that, shock, then she followed up with her second question. Well, how much did she cost? So I thought, well, she's got a new way of entering this conversation that had never dawned on me to this point.
Yeah. The cost question just seemed irrelevant at that point.
Yeah, it seemed like the easier of the two. Yeah. So, yeah, but yeah, it goes back to, well, it may go back to what we were talking about in previous when we talked about empathy.
Oh yeah.
Can I put myself in the other person's shoes? Can I truly understand, understand what it is that they're going through that might prompt the behavior that I'm seeing that I initially labeled as villainous, right? And it may not even be that. It may just be it's resistant. Why are they fighting this change, right? They know this is good for the office. This is going to be good for business. Why are they fighting this change?
Right.
And from their point of view, they may actually see themselves as the heroic one who's saving the rest of the department from a bad decision.
Yeah.
And so trying to put yourselves into that frame of mind, understand exactly where they're coming from, you got a better chance of having a great conversation.
Yeah. And the reason that you put yourself in their shoes or try to imagine that or gather information, there must be more to the story that I don't understand, is because you don't know the whole thing. There's no way for you to know the whole thing. And there's that, it's a famous example, and I'm ashamed that I can't remember what book it's from, but it talks about the shift of your paradigm because of events like this. And the author had sat down at an airport and had brought a sleeve of cookies, had bought a sleeve of cookies and was going to sit there and eat the cookies, and sat down next to somebody else reading a book and reached over and got her first cookie. I think it was a she, and by golly, the guy reading the book grabbed a cookie and ate one. And just she's incensed. How dare him? He didn't even ask or nothing. And so she gets another cookie, and he gets another cookie, and she gets another cookie, and he gets another cookie. They go through the whole sleeve that way. Get to the final cookie. He gets the last cookie, breaks it in half, and hands her half. And she's just, she has no words. She's just nuclear at this point. Gets onto her plane, reaches into her purse, finds her sleeve of cookies.
Oops.
He had been the bad guy. He had been the villain in her mind. Nope. She had just sat down and ate half his cookies. And he was now this, angel. What a great guy. He gave her half of the last cookie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is Marion material right here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to order any French fries. I don't want any.
Yeah, right.
Oh, but I'll eat half of yours. Yeah. It's like, that's a test right there. Is this guy good husband material?
That's right.
Yeah, that's perfect. So where do we go with this? I mean, it's yeah, we usually like to end on, okay, here's 3 things you can do.
Right. Well, but your question, I think your question introduced early on is a great one. Am I the villain in somebody else's story? I think it's good to ask that question about any friction that you're having, any conflict that you're having. I think it's also smart to just come at it with the idea that maybe I'm judging myself by my intentions, but not you. And I need to start finding out your intentions, finding out more to the story, instead of plowing through with my persecution of you as the villain.
Yes. Treating you like the villain.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, how do I treat villains? Poorly. Yeah. Not well. So yeah, if I'm gonna treat you like somebody who has a different point of view, then that's different than treating you as a villain, somebody who's purposely, fighting against me.
Right.
And so yeah, trying to understand their why and trying to walk a mile in their shoes.
And I'll throw in a third thing, since we want to have 3. I don't know how long it's been since you've read the story in the book of Genesis about the Tower of Babel. But that is a little bit of what we're talking about today. In the story, I've pulled it up on my little Bible app. But they gather in a plain, they figure out how to make bricks, all these people, and they say, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. And that was the goal. And it sounds really good, right? It sounds really good. But the idea is that in Genesis chapter 1, God had already said, look, I want you to have dominion and spread and fill the whole earth. You're supposed to go spread out. And frankly, you're supposed to make my name great, because I'm God, not your name great. And so part of the reason for the failure of the Tower of Babel is that they thought it was their story. And I would challenge you. I get that not everybody's going to have the same faith that I do on this podcast, but hey, what if the whole thing is a paradigm shift? Instead of you being a villain in your own story or not a villain in your own story, what if it's not your story? Imagine the level of humility that you could enter into your day-to-day life without having to see yourself as this, the ultimate victim or the ultimate martyr or the ultimate hero. What if, I'll go ahead and say it, what if God's the hero of the story? What if that's where the focus is supposed to be? It's an incredibly freeing way to spend the rest of your energy and behavior during the day, knowing that the burden's not on me on this one. It might be somewhere else. So that's my third thing that I'll throw into the mix. Not going to apply to everybody, but that's a thought.
Yeah. What is it? To know that the great play goes on and that I may contribute a part. Yeah. So yeah, am I a contributing player to a bigger story? Yeah. Perfect. And then making my way through that. Yeah. So this has been fascinating. I think I've learned a lot. Hopefully both our viewers have. So very excited about that. And somebody who's truly enlightened is our announcer, Mr. John Wolf. Let's see what he has to say.
So go ahead and tweet that, or share it any other way you want. As always, there are no rights reserved, no trademarks, no copyrights. Share it if you want to. And join us next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.
That's good enough.